Welcome, everybody. This is, at least for now, the final I&E Conversation, so welcome. And those of you that have been with us the whole time, thank you so much. It's wonderful to see some familiar names and faces, which I'll get to in a second. If you are willing to participate via video, it makes it much more intimate and personal, so we very much appreciate it if you will turn your video on. Of course, if it's up to you. We are recording this, as I think most of you will know. You will not appear unless you're actually speaking, so have no fear on that score. And what we do with the video will be entirely up to Paula and the team at Clorox. We very much value your feedback, and there will be a survey that will be, a link will be sent out toward the end. And the end, by the way, will be at 12:55 today for a set of unavoidable reasons. And questions, we have a few questions that were submitted in advance, and I'll try to weave them into the conversation. If you would like to ask a question in the first half hour or so, please raise your hand, or better, put the question in chat. We'll try to get to all of the questions from you, but I'd like to have a little bit of order and structure here. So it is my very great pleasure to welcome Paula Alexander from right here in Durham, who is the Senior Director of Sustainability at the Clorox Company. So please join me in welcoming Paula.
Thank you.
Paula, thanks so much for joining us. We will get to how you got where you are in a little bit, but let's just start with sustainability. It's a word we hear a lot, very big idea. What does it mean?
Yeah, so I had to define it for Clorox recently because it can mean so many things. It's such a broad topic, but for us, it's really approaching our work in a way that's considerate of future resources, using them responsibly so they're available for thriving future generations. And it requires that you really think your entire value chain. We call it what we make, how we operate, and how we give back. So it really does encompass a lot of our work, and that also explains why it's so important that it's in everyone's job description, because everyone can touch on sustainability, and it's critical for not only current business performance, but most importantly, the long game.
And why is this important, do you think? And I hope this doesn't sound like a sort of an obvious question, but I think the answer to this is important.
Yeah, it is. It's important for so many reasons. By 2050, if we don't change what we're doing, there will be more microplastic than fish in the ocean. The industrial revolution, extinction rate has been going up exponentially, and we don't even know the implications of that because there's this invisible web of biodiversity that exists and that helps us as humans, thrive on this planet. The extreme weather events that are happening because of the climate crisis. On the news this week that in Siberia, 100 degrees Fahrenheit this week. So these extreme weather events are going to be impacting us. But, yeah.
I just want to stop you for a second and let me ask, so I think your audio is quite poor. William, it was funny, it was fine before we started. Do you have any suggestions on what we do to improve her audio?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Are you using your internet for audio?
I am on the internet for audio.
I think that, I hate to do this, but, maybe, William, if you know how to do shadow puppets, I'm going to suggest that you leave the meeting, Paula, come back and connect via your phone, because I think, it's too important for us to miss that. Yeah, I'm guessing it's your internet, but we can try that and see if that makes a difference.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Does this help any? Is that any better?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just back up yeah, that sounds better. What do you think, Williams? That sound good?
That sounds good. Yeah.
You can hear better.
Okay.
Okay, great.
So,
sorry about that.
That's okay. Just peel back a little bit and 50 years and what's going to be left of the planet.
Yeah.
I won't be around to see it, but many of the people on the call will be.
So why is sustainability important? By 2050, if we don't do things differently, there will be more microplastics than fish in our oceans. Our extreme weather events, you may have seen the news this week that a town inside degrees Fahrenheit. Then our...
I think that didn't work.
Yeah.
So
it's not helping?
I think,
okay.
I think we're best off if we just have you leave, come back, connect via your phone. It'll be more reliable. I really hate to do this, everybody, but I think it'll be a much better session if we have good audio from you, Paula. And
No
I feel for you. This happens to me on a regular basis. So
no worries.
It's a bit frustrating.
I'll dial in now.
Okay, great. Thanks.
It's a shame her video was like crystal clear, but the audio was terrible.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to come. I wonder if she understood what I wanted, which is for her to leave, come back, and have the video. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
We are all learning about this Zoom thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm jealous. I have some colleagues who have gigabit fiber to their home and have absolutely fantastic service. I can't even listen to music all the time with my crappy service out in the woods here. Anybody have any interesting Zoom horror stories they want to share? So let's see. Quick roll call here. Liza, you've been regular. You are up in the Northeast somewhere, Connecticut or New Jersey? I'm sorry.
I'm in Florida.
Florida. Okay, I went the wrong way.
It's all
Elena,
good.
how about you? Yeah. Where are you located?
I'm calling from Durham.
Durham, okay. Miracle. Chase, you're next on my roundup. Where are you?
I'm in Rochester, New York.
Okay, very good. Very good. It's kind of, we have a bit of an inversion. It must be warm up there.
What's that?
I said it must be warm up there. I've heard, my mother lives somewhat north of you, and I know they've had a heat wave up there.
Yeah, it's been a really hot summer so far.
Yeah, I saw something about it being over 100 in the Arctic on the news. Ellen Lee, how about you? Where are you?
Washington, D.C.
Okay, well, we've got the East Coast pretty much covered. Jing, you jumped on the video. Thank you. Where are you?
I'm in Memphis, Tennessee.
Tennessee, well, so we're moving a little west. Okay. Okay, let's see. Well, not back yet. Amy, I know where you are. Chris.
I'm
Where are you?
in San Francisco Bay Area, north of the city.
Okay. Very good. Okay, Paula.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
And that
Okay.
sounds much better. Okay, third time's a charm on this.
Very good. Okay. So, John, you had asked, why is sustainability important? So for those of you guys who didn't hear it before,
there's just so many things that are happening in our environment that are indicators, whether it's the exponential species extinction rate that really began with the industrial age, but we don't even know the implications of what that will do because there's this invisible web of biodiversity that gives us the food we eat, the medicines that we take, and honestly, it's believed that much of what's happened with our current pandemic has been a result of biodiversity loss and some of the urbanization and impacts that we've been seeing around the planet. The extreme climate events, the town in Siberia that hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit this week, and our oceans will have more microplastics than fish by 2050 if we don't do things differently. But, it doesn't stop there with what's going on in the environment. There's also the issue of environmental injustice. And I am just becoming more of a student on this topic. But, we just find that communities of color are disparately impacted by the implications of environmental damage and degradation that's happening as a result of people on this planet. So for all of those reasons, it's why we need to care about sustainability, and business with our footprint, has a responsibility and has a great opportunity to be a force for change and to make the change that we all need to make in order to have our resources available for thriving future generations, which is where we started with all of this being our definition of sustainability.
Wonderful. That's great. So is Nancy Jung on the call? I don't see her name, but I see a couple of unidentified, because I'd like her question. Well.
Hi, Keith. I see your note.
So let me read Nancy's question. It is, how can companies' sustainability efforts come across as genuine in this day and age when every brand seems to have a sustainability angle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one, it's a good thing that hopefully every brand is having a sustainability angle. And that's part of my job, to ensure that every brand that the Clorox company does have a point of view and is making an impact on sustainability. We're not expecting that every brand will be able to authentically be for the oceans or the animals or people and justice, but we do expect every business to be making an impact on sustainability. And I think where authenticity comes through is when you're actually walking the talk. And that's something that I've been working on for over a decade at Burt's Bees, is to ensure that our founders' values and our messages and our what we call the greater good, which is about good for you, good for us, and good for all, comes through in every decision that we take. We need to be thinking about it within our operational footprint of our manufacturing facilities. But we only manufacture 70% of what we sell. So we have to make sure that the other 30% that's with contract manufacturers, they're also being for social and environmental responsibility. It needs to come through in the way we're providing products to people. It's no good if you have natural ingredients and formulations in a package that's unsustainable and that can't be recycled. So we need to make sure that you're being authentic in all of those decisions and all of your practices. So I think that's the good news, is that every brand is talking this, and it's very current, and people care about it. But that true sustainability, where it's not just greenwashing, but it's being true to the sustainability practices, that's when it works. But we also can't be afraid to stand for something and get out there in the absence of being perfect. I heard a term recently, green hushing. So you've got greenwashing, which is doing things and not being authentic and true to sustainability and talking about them as if you are. but green hushing is actually being so worried that hey, we might be questioned about this, or we may not be perfect on these things, and therefore we won't talk about it at all. So it really needs to be both.
That's great. Narissa, I see your question in the chat. How about if you ask Paula your question? If you can pop into the conversation, that would be great.
She said her mic is not working.
I saw like the first half of the question. I didn't see the second half.
Let me read it, and everybody else can look at the chat as well and read it. So how can companies double down in terms of considering environmental justice, especially in terms of where raw materials are sourced, workers making livable wages, which helps them be more resilient, etc.? Maybe corporations like Apple state Black Lives Matter, but the controversial nature of where their materials, their minerals are sourced from, and mining also having a detrimental impact on the landscape.
Yeah. That's a very real issue, and it goes back to the previous question. It really is greenwashing if and when you're taking a stand, but your company's practices are not authentic to what you're standing for. We at Burt's Bees, we have a responsible sourcing program. We have over 900 raw materials, 300 products. And so it's hard to say that we are fully traceable and transparent across everything yet. Our program is about 5 years old. But you do have to start somewhere. So, we first started with those raw materials that are highest volume raw materials, are waxes. Beeswax is our #1 ingredient. Oils, sunflower oil, almond oil, and butters, things like cocoa butter. And so you start there first. And the good news is that companies are beginning to be concerned about this. There's a great sort of organization throughout fast consumer moving goods manufacturers called AIM Progress, where we collaborate, we share and recognize each other's audits of our suppliers. And you start there first. Self-certification, ruthlessly going through raw materials when you select them. How do they harvest them? How are they grown? What are the practices in both social and environmental responsibility? So we start there first, but if we start seeing issues or there's some hotspot ingredients in areas around the world, or there are places where there's concerns about inappropriate labor practices, fair wages, or even child labor. Those are the sort of things that we start going much more deeply into. And we now go on site visits for those priority raw materials. Shannon Hess on my team has been at this for about 5 years. She's been on over 70 raw material supplier visits in the last few years. I actually got to go to Ghana last year and visit our sourcing communities for shea butter. And as you keep getting more traceable and transparent and identify that you have good practices in your raw material supply chains, you can then decide where can you start doing more good. And we have a global supply chain investment strategy where we're making investments in those communities where it can really make a huge difference. It was amazing to see that in person, and we came back and said, how can we do more of this? Because that shea is a handcrafted shea butter that we source from these communities. You go there and we've created this processing center. Sounds pretty fancy. It's basically this cement structure with some big, safer cooking stoves where they can roast the kernels and crush them and get the shea butter from them. But it's serving as a community center for so many of the villages in the area, and children are not falling into the fires because the cook
stoves are safer. And you start seeing that the impact that business can have in those ways, and it starts making you realize that, yes, traceable, transparent supply chains are really critical for risk management, but also because you can make a huge impact on people by doing that. And it makes for some really good storytelling and marketing as well. So I hope that's probably a longer-winded answer to your question, but businesses have to know what's going on upstream, and it goes back to that whole system approach to sustainability, knowing what's going on both upstream, where you source, and then downstream, how your products are ultimately being used, and then how things are ultimately being disposed of, or ideally returned to the system so that they're circular in the end.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. So I know if Zach Chan is on, but he's asking a question that I think fits in well here. I'm going to preface it by, so most of you probably won't know, but I think we're about at the 50th anniversary of Milton Friedman's famous article where he argued that the social responsibility of the firm is to generate profit. It hasn't been a popular view in the sense of people being willing to espouse it, but it is operationally quite ingrained, I think. So Zach's question is, when implementing sustainability strategy for Burt's Bees, how did you balance the business side of things, price margin, and being environmentally conscious? Unfortunately, earth-friendly often means more expensive. And I think, so he asked about Burt's Bees, but we can maybe ask to talk about instances where there's a trade-off between what you think is more sustainable and the cost, and how do those discussions go, at Burt's Bees or in other product areas at Clorox?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we fully believe that profit and purpose can go hand in hand. They don't have to be at odds with one another, and in fact, we see that the job of business is to do more than just be financially profitable. We call it good growth at Clorox. It's growth that's profitable but sustainable for the long run, and then also responsible. And you look at that, it's not just about the profit that you bring to the bank, but it's the amount of brand fans and people that choose your brand over other brands, because you're doing these things for both social and environmental responsibility. We don't take gross margin to the bank, we take profit to the bank. And the more volume you have, the more you can generate and the more you can plow back into doing good, because it's a very virtuous model. And I don't think that it's not just limited to the financial profitability. And we've seen that if you go back to the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. 10 years ago, they declared that they would be for multi-stakeholders, not just their shareholders. Paul Pullman, I think on the first week of his job, said, we're going to stop giving guidance to investors on a quarterly basis because it's making us focus far too much on the quarterly decision making and not about the long-term impact that our business can make. And they've seen that their brands that they consider their sustainable brands are the ones that are growing and the ones that are delivering on the business, both for revenue as well as for profitability.
I just want to pause for a second for us to reflect on what you just said. I think that is quite profound, and the connection of taking the long view of your business and its evolution over a long arc, its position in society, its contribution to society, and the benefits to all the stakeholders from managing that responsibly is a very different perspective on corporation than it was often characterized, the evil profit-generating machine, of which there are many. I really, I think that was a profound observation, and I want to pause on it and ask if any of you have any questions to follow up. Now would be a good time. I mean, that is really the crux of the issue here of how to view sustainability in a way that really generates a sustainable venture, as well as contributing, engaging with the environment and human populations in a way that is just and sustainable. Okay, well, you can keep thinking about your questions, and let me switch gears a little bit. This is a really big job, and it's just wonderful to hear the depth of your thinking about this. How on earth did you get to be in charge of sustainability at Clorox? What was your journey?
Yeah, so I'm a proud Duke Fuqua class of 98 grad, and I went to business school because I'm a product junkie. I love consumer packaged goods, and particularly beauty and personal care. So at the time, Duke was a really big player and still is in creating brand managers and putting them into jobs. So this was back in 98. And I had the opportunity then to go to Unilever and be in brand management for many years. Started on the Snuggle business, Lever 2000, Suave brand, and then was on the Dove business for quite a while. And it was there that I got this taste of, marketing can be so much more than just marketing a white bar of soap that doesn't dry your skin, or a white beauty bar that doesn't dry your skin like soap can. It was more about generating. It was more about being for women's self-esteem. We had this insight with the original launch of the campaign for Real Beauty that only 1% of women globally would call themselves beautiful, and we thought that was a travesty. And what had we done as the beauty industry to create those perceptions? So this was over probably 15 years ago that I got a taste of values-based marketing. And then after a while, I had the opportunity to come back to Durham to work for Burt's Bees. And I was reminded that another key sort of milestone in my life had come graduating from Texas A&M. And I was reading the book from Anita Roddick. She was the founder of The Body Shop. And her original book was called Body and Soul. And she was doing sustainability before sustainability was a term. She was focused on traceability and transparency in her supply chains, and how do you be good to the people that help you make and produce the products that you sell, and turn that into marketing storytelling. So I was reminded when I came to Burt's Bees that I was interested in that, a decade earlier. So, I've always had this passion for marketing and products, but had the opportunity to come into my current role at Burt's about 9 years ago, leading sustainability, making sure it was included in all of our decision making. I sat on our leadership team, and honestly, because of my brand marketing background, had the opportunity to help ensure that we were integrating into the rest of our parent company, Clorox, who bought us in 2007. And Clorox launched a new strategy, our 2030 strategy called Ignite last fall, where we've doubled down on environmental, social, governance goals, and really leaning into the good growth that I mentioned before. And I took the opportunity to say, hey, I've been doing this at Burt's the last 10 years, integrating sustainability into all we do. Taken us 10 years. Let's do it in 3 years at Clorox. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm leading a team that we call the commercial team of our Sustainability Center. And the goal is that we do embed sustainability into all of our brands so that they can be a sustainable business, if not a sustainable brand. And then that we start figuring out how do you drive value of sustainability, not just because it can be about eliminating waste and being more profitable and managing your risk,
but it can also be about unlocking value for our retail partners as well as value for our consumers. People love brands. People love to align with brands, and we've got a lot of powerful brands in our portfolio that can have a bigger impact in this space. So that's kind of how I've gotten to where I have and what I'm working on now.
Thanks a lot. Let me ask you, was it a hard sell to the Clorox management to try to stand up this effort in 3 years?
You know, again, with our Ignite strategy, we had said that we wanted to do this. I don't think and it was actually it's kind of the way sustainability needs to be done, right? Setting these goals that you don't know how you're going to achieve them is really best practice in sustainability, because these are complicated problems. Unlike, not to diminish it or say that it's easy, but a typical business model where you set your financial targets and you plan to them and you know how you're going to get there. That's what we've always done at the Clorox Company. We've consistently delivered growth and dividends for our shareholders, but taking that leap of faith and having our executive committee establish these ESG goals where we didn't know how to get there. They knew that we need to embed sustainability more deeply throughout the organization, and honestly have always looked to Burt's to be a bit more leading edge and be an internal exemplar. So it was not that big a sale, because they've seen us at Burt's do it, and I think being inspired by it, and I think saw that we would be able to do it at Clorox as well, the rest of the company.
I'm going to pause for a second. In some of the previous conversations, some of you have had questions about preparation for a career and background and what sport to major in, things like that. I point out that one of the things Paula said that maybe you should take note of, she got into a business that she really cared about, that she thought was important, and brought that personal interest, passion, if you will. We've talked about that before, and you might comment on why you were in that space rather than electronics or something else. But then I'm going to pause to see if you have any questions about sort of the evolution of Paula's career and preparation for it and things like that. I know that's obviously important to me.
I have a question. Going from the brand management role to the sustainability role, how did you sort of gain the technical knowledge on sustainability, or did you just sort of learn as you went?
Yeah, I had to learn as I went, and I've always surrounded myself with a team of more technical experts, so that we could all have a unique role on the team. So yeah, I've had to learn as I go. And even this week, I was in a meeting, hearing about science-based targets and having to say, gosh, sometimes I have to hear this 3 or 4 times to really be able to know what we're doing here and why we're doing it and how we're going to set these metrics. So yeah, I've had to learn on the job, but I'd say that I think the exciting thing is that, and I came into this and graduated Fuqua during a time when the word sustainability didn't even exist. What's really exciting is that it does exist now, and there's dual degrees looking at environmental management and MBAs and undergraduates that are coming out of school with a lot of these technical skills and understanding. And that's really exciting, because you can take some of that learning and that best practice and apply it more quickly. It takes all of us, though. I often say that part of my role is distilling it, simplifying it, boiling it down, making it translatable for the rest of the organization, and in particular for other stakeholders like our consumers or even retailers. You kind of need a combination of that, and I'd say I've got
really good working knowledge of some areas, but even there's certainly some areas where I am not proficient.
Thank you.
Great answer. Any other questions along those lines? I might point out we've sort of had this, we've touched on this before, especially when you're early in your career. People are evaluating what you can learn rather than what you've already learned, and it's more important that you're demonstrating the ability to learn, curiosity, critical thinking, than that you actually have a portfolio of technical skills already. And you might think of that as you position yourself for your careers. Paula, you hire people. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that. And I'd say some advice that I'd give, to folks that are considering careers in sustainability. There's a couple ways that you can go, and I heard this recently. You can go to a big company with scale and help them be more sustainable through and through, or you can go to a company that's sustainable through and through, and they typically don't tend to be your largest companies, and then help them scale. So that really kind of helps, simplify the choice. Do you want to go to a big company and build out more sustainability, or do you want to go somewhere where there's just true sustainability from the business model all the way through to execution, and help it grow? So that's kind of a good way to think about it. I'd say also, Katie Cross wrote a good book. I think it was maybe launched originally and released in 2014, and I think it's been updated. But it's called Profession and Purpose, and it helps you really think about what are the different careers in sustainability and entry points. So I'd certainly recommend that. Katie Cross is the managing director of EDGE at Fuqua.
Great. Other questions along those lines? Oh, we have a moment. Okay, let's a little bit again. So tell us a little bit about Burt's Bees. And, many may have heard the story of Bert and grumpy old man in Maine, and but maybe you could tell a little bit about sort of the Burt's Bees as a startup and how it grew, and how purpose, sustainability were all woven together sort of in the fabric of that firm.
Mm-hmm. So I think many people are familiar with the founding story, but I'll just share it. It's sometimes fun to hear people's different interpretations of it. But there was definitely a Bert, but there was also a Roxanne, and she was equally, if not more important to the business. Bert grew up in New York, was a photojournalist for Time magazine, went and served in the military for a while, and just at some point decided, I don't want to live this lifestyle in New York City. I'm going to head on up into Maine, and decided he was going to live off the grid and live more closely to nature. And he was making his living literally beekeeping and selling honey off the back of his yellow truck that has become our signature yellow for the brand. And he met Roxanne, who is kind of a very different story, but also had decided to go settle in Maine, was living off the grid with 2 kids, a single mom, and they kind of partnered and realized that it was really Roxanne who said, Bert, you shouldn't be selling gallon jars of honey for $10. You should be selling quart-sized jars of honey for $10 and putting a pretty label on it, and you're going to go a lot farther. So she was an artist. She was the artist. He was the beekeeper, and she would rough out, sketches on napkins to become the original artwork on the Burt's Bees packaging. Found the original lip balm recipe in a farmer's almanac, and they were really sustainable out of necessity, out of being resourceful, and it was only later
they moved the company from Maine to North Carolina in the 90s. Private equity started investing in the late 90s and early 2000s. And it was around 05, 06 when we really started codifying our sustainability. We created the Greater Good business model at the time. And over time, just started saying, really formalizing our approach to sustainability. But, you know, our brand purpose really goes back to Roxanne's, you know, values and our founding values. We want to reconnect people to the beauty, power, and wisdom of nature. And that's really what Bert and Roxanne were doing, living off the grid and being resourceful and protecting nature and valuing nature. So that's really what we do. That's why we do what we do. And that really serves as our strong brand purpose.
That's great. Tell us about how employees connect to purpose and sustainability. What do you think the role, not just of the sustainability team, but employees in general? And you know, you could maybe start with Burt's Bees, but then now think about how that culture is you're trying to permeate that through the Clorox company.
Mm-hmm. You know, to be successful in sustainability, it has to be a mindset in business. It has to be in everyone's job description, not really literally, but figuratively. So we work very hard to have a strong culture at Burt's Bees. And I describe it as needing to be consistent, deliberate, and comprehensive. And it doesn't just happen on its own. If you aren't those three things, it will happen on its own, and it may not be what you want it to be. And it needs to be palpable. When you come through the front doors of our building, of the Hill Building there at the American Tobacco campus, you feel the culture when you walk through the doors. You see it in the observation beehive in the front wall of our building. You see it on Bert's reconstructed cabin in front of our building. And each of those things really serves as a reminder to our employees, again, what our purpose is and what we stand for. And whether you're a marketer or you're a product formulator or you're somebody that works in our manufacturing facility over near the airport, everyone can articulate the greater good, you know, what we make, how we operate, and how we give back. And so really building that strong culture and helping everyone really appreciate what role will they play in delivering our sustainability and delivering on our purpose B is essential. And, you know, people want to be a part of something that is bigger than themselves. If you're going to be doing this for a good portion of your life, people want to be in a place that's in alignment with their values. And, you know, we saw this as we rolled out the Ignite strategy last fall for Clorox. The ESG focus was really what was new and different in the strategy. And after the rollout, you know, people started sort of stepping up and saying, how can I be more sustainable in what I'm doing, whether it's on Hidden Valley Ranch dressing or Brito water filtration brand or Kingsford charcoal. People wanted to be more sustainable in their everyday, at work and at home, and that's an important part of it too. Is that we help people, you know, think about, we've got an annual culture day, and they recommit to our formal culture, our purpose, and our values. But then we also support people so they can live sustainability in their lives outside of the workplace, because the more you can, you know, live that sustainable lifestyle, the more you can bring it to life in the things that you work on.
That's great. So we can start to take any questions that you might have. I'm going to ask Paul one more while you're thinking, but then we'll take whatever you want to throw at Paula. You know, there are two different aspects to what you were just Paula. One is you have a set of employees that have lived in a different environment, and their desire and shifting to more of a sustainable model, which is one challenge. But the other is the role of the sustainability in recruiting people and attracting talent to the company. And I wonder if you could just talk about the importance of purpose and the sustainability mission in your recruiting effort.
Mm-hmm. It plays a huge role, and you just have to look at our segmentations these days. Sustainability is playing such a bigger role in the values of younger consumers, and as they're leaving college and becoming candidates for jobs at Clorox and at Burt's Bees, and it's because sustainability. There's a group called the Hartman Group. They've looked at sustainability over the last decade, and whereas it was just something out there 10 years ago, it was a technical sort of thing, it's now embedded in people's values. And I think we're increasingly seeing that, and it's in people's values, especially younger people who are likely to be entering the workplace. So I'd say that's really where it plays a role, and we do. I'll find myself going and speaking at recruiting events because people want to hear about the work that we're doing in sustainability and how they might be a part of it. We're beginning to do some different case study opportunities, and whereas it used to be just about you do a case study on how to develop a new product, and here's your target consumer, and generate a new product for them. People love to rally around a sustainability case study and be thinking about those things. And I think it's not just because it's current these days. It's because it's about the long game. It's about a thriving planet for future generations. That people want to be a part of this and figure out how can they apply their unique talents and what they've learned to being part of the solution.
Wonderful, thank you. Victor, please go ahead.
Hello, Paula. It's Victor Taylor with Duke's Corporate Relations Office. Thank you for your time. I wanted to just take a moment, make sure you knew that the company, Clorox Burt's Bees, and especially your colleague, Matt Kopak, has been very helpful to us with the Duke Durham COVID-19 Recovery Fund. And so you all have made a very generous gift, as well as the gift of your time. And so I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that, and thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Victor. I mean, I think, in the early days of COVID, we started asking ourselves, how do we help in all of this? And I was thrilled that, Duke was able to step up and say, hey, we can help support this and make this happen. We've got these close connections with the community. You had a bunch of corporate partners who wanted to help out too, but maybe didn't know how to bring it all together. So we appreciate Duke's role in that too.
That's great. Thanks, Victor. And in fact, there's a question from Chris Klein. I think he was on earlier. He might have dropped off. I'm going to pause for a second to see if Chris is still on. Well, once again, I will pretend I'm him and read his question. Tell us about your views of the pandemic on sustainability efforts, both in the U.S. and globally. How has that changed your thinking, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, one has to only, see the clearer waters in Venice, or finally see the mountains behind the skyline of LA to know that this was an opportunity for us to see what's possible, but also for us to understand the radical behavior changes that are going to have to happen to make the kind of changes that we need to see to address some of those environmental and social implications that we talked about at the top of the hour. So, I think it's most of the futures thinkers, the folks that are doing scenario planning, are saying that sustainability may take a brief pause, but it will start back with a vengeance, after we get through the current crisis, because people are seeing the global interconnectedness of us all. We're seeing the what can be different as a result of our extreme behavior changes. And I think people are starting to see, the value of community. There's a lot of research saying that people's values are shifting and focused more on health and well-being of ourselves, but those around us. So, I think there will be some recessionary impacts, and whoever asked, earlier, sometimes sustainable is the more expensive option. That's a call to action for us too, is how do you make sure that sustainability is accessible for everyone, so that as we go through these challenging times and recessionary period, how do we continue to make sure that we focus on the long game, make it accessible, and keep focusing on the long game.
Wonderful. Well, we are close to out of time. Let me ask you, Paula, if you would end with any words of advice for people entering the workforce either now or in the near future.
Well, these are absolutely extraordinary times. As I said before, I think sustainability is everyone's responsibility. So whether you go into a role with sustainability in the title, or you just go with your values in mind and what you personally want to do to help ensure that our resources are available in the future, and that we have a healthy, thriving planet, and that nature continues to exist, then you can make a difference no matter where you go. I think have patience for what's right if you can. I know having a source of income, or the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy needs are certainly critical, but know that we will get through this, and we're all looking to the folks entering the workforce today that have had some technical learning in the area of sustainability, and can help us all learn and continue to push where we've been, and be willing to break some of those orthodoxies. That's what we're going to need, and I hope that you guys can help do that.
Wonderful. Well, Paula, thank you so much. I hope you all found this as interesting, thoughtful, and really thought-provoking as I did. Thank you so much, Paula, for an excellent session. Thank all of you for joining us. I think, Paula, you put a very nice exclamation point on the I&E conversations we've held this summer, so thank you for that. Thank you all for joining us. Let's thank Paula, and please stay safe, stay well, and let's look forward to seeing many of you in the fall. So thank you, Paula.
Thank you, guys. Have a good summer.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.